Right, brilliant. I'm going to start. What I'm going to do, if anybody comes on, you should be able to hear me. And I'm talking about, I'm just sending a test to see it's testing, send. Okay, right. What I'm going to do is run through composite Pluto by house and by sign. And what this means is if you have a composite chart is for any type of relationship, meaning that it can be a family member, it can be somebody that you work with, it can be absolutely anybody. So composite charts are not just for what we term intimate relationships, they're for all relationships, for relationships with your children, with your partner, with your work colleague. And the beauty of composite charts is that we are able to figure out what are the dynamics of each other. And in evolutionary astrology, we use Pluto as the baseline, and then we look at the North Node and the South Node. But composite chart I will show you in other videos, but I'm going to run through the signs and what it means if you know what a composite chart is or not. If you don't, you can ask me in the messenger on the chat and I'll be able to explain to you. So here goes. We've got composite Pluto by house and sign. The house and sign where composite Pluto resides, it shows us the evolutionary intention and the prior life desires. So we can think about that. Even on our own chart, it's showing that on a natal chart. But when we put two charts together and we get a composite chart, it's basically showing the evolutionary intention and the prior life desires of that particular connection we're having, whoever we're having a connection with. It shows us where the relationship left off, and then it shows the polarity point, which shows us the way forward to resolve our karmic issues. In the exploration of a chart, we must look at the North Node and the South Nodes and the location of the rulers of the North Node and the South Node to get a bigger picture and understanding of the direction of the relationship. We need to look at Mars also and the house and sign it is in, because this shows us the desire and the will and the instincts within the relationship. We also need to look at the aspects to Mars, and Mars is our subjective consciousness where we are aware of self and also as well as outside factors. Next slide. So there's something in evolutionary astrology that we also deal with that's called the phasal relationship between Pluto and Mars. And we can look at that with the degrees, which I'll show you when I show you my own chart. So we look at we're looking at the phasal relationship also, Mars and Venus, and we also need to be looked at as well. And we can, if you get a book, it's called Pluto Volume 2 by Jeff Wolf-Green. You're going to be able to study and look at your own composite chart with anybody that you come into contact with, as long as you know their time of birth and date and place. So then we're looking at the intention of the relationship will be seen in the polarity point, and also the house it resides in is really important. And then we get to understand the reason for any relationship that's taking place. So we do need to look deeper into our evolutionary estates to understand the differences of how people interact with each other in relationship. And, you know, every relationship that we have is important. Generally, intimate ones clearly are more important, but every relationship we have with people at work and people that we, you know, hang out with, all of those relationships are important. Consensus, this is important also in evolutionary astrology. We've got consensus state, which is like a majority. Consensus state is to do with rules and beliefs, like what people believe. So for instance, consensus means what the majority will believe. And consensus state souls that have evolved into what we call consensus state of evolution, which comprises about roughly 70% of all of the souls on the planet at this time. We've then got the individuated state, which Carl Gustav Jung work he talks about, where individuated is used in the union sense of the word. This comprises of roughly about 20% of all souls on the earth. And then we've got the spiritual state of evolution that comprises about 4 to 6% of the souls on the planet. But again, you can read that in the Pluto book. Then Pluto, the Soul's Evolution Through Relationships, Volume 2. So we've also got Pluto generations. You can see here, you know, Pluto in Cancer would be 1914 to 1939. Pluto takes 240 odd years to move around a chart. So For instance, I was born in 1966, so you can see I'm a Pluto in Virgo, because Pluto in Virgo is 1956 to 1972. So your generation is really important. So for instance, if you were born in 2008, then you'll be Pluto in Capricorn, you'll be Pluto in Scorpio if you were born in 1983 to 1985. So do check out and understand the generations as well with Pluto, because this is really important. This is my astrology chart, and it's a natal chart. But what you would be able to see is that if you took your own chart, and then you got somebody else, and if you go to astro.com, www.astro.com, and you enter both those details, you'll get a composite chart which will show you where your Pluto falls with another person that you're in relationship with. So for instance, I've got 2 girlfriends at the moment. We share a 9th house composite Pluto. I've got another good friend where I share a 10th house composite Pluto. And what I'm about to read to you is going to show you what that means. If you have a partner and you have a composite Pluto in the 7th house, then it's going to show you how your relationship is working out. So this is up to you to find that information out. And if you need help with that, I can do it, but you do need the date, time, place, and birth, date and place of birth, but time is important. So I'm going to read to you now composite Pluto in the 1st house in Aries. And if anybody's watching and they understand what composite Pluto is, or you don't understand, or if you do, if you've got a partner and you know what composite Pluto you share with them, then you're going to be able to gauge what this means to you. So here goes. So composite Pluto in the 1st house or Aries. This is a new cycle, and this is going to be like first time contact. It's the beginning of something new, a new beginning of discovery. It's individual needs and desires are top of the agenda here. So your individual needs and desires are top of the agenda if you have a 1st house composite or Aries Pluto. The people in this relationship will be headstrong. There can be power trips, overpowering each other, individuated desires, and a need to have independent realities. So you need to understand that with this placement, if you've got a composite Pluto 1st house or Aries, that you're going to need to understand that you do need independent realities, that you need to sort of get away from dominating each other and controlling each other must be looked at. Past lives of not sustaining relationship can have existed, short-term intensity, and there can be a strong attraction, and the sexual activity is not enough to keep them committed to each other. So if you understand that and you've got a composite 1st house or Pluto or Aries, then what you need to do is go to the polarity and integrate composite Pluto polarity point 7th or the house of Libra. So this is how you would remedy your composite Pluto in 1. You would need to learn to listen to each other and each other's realities, to hear each other fully. You would need to, get to a point where you're hearing each other fully, and you would need to watch out for interpreting each other's realities, projections, and filters, to ask each other what each other mean, so that you don't have mixed signals. So instead of just assuming and projecting, you would need to sit down and understand each other. It's about equality, balancing, being giving, working together, appreciation, and bringing in depth into the relationship. Okay, so now we're going to look at composite Pluto in the house of Taurus or the 2nd house. And I'm going to read this, and this is about values and systems to be investigated, creating new meaning for the relationship. So if you have the composite Pluto 2nd house or in Taurus, values and systems to be investigated, creating new meaning for the relationship. Stability is needed due to past life separations or lacking in material resources that affected the relationship's stability and survival. It's about the creation of being solid and permanence, that which cannot be taken away. So, for instance, trust, we can have trust with each other that cannot be taken away. If we agree that we are going to trust each other, for instance, then we can agree that we're not going to abuse that or allow that to be taken away. Here, both are desiring dependency from outside to increase the survival of the relationship. So there's this desire and dependency from outside. There is a desire to possess, as memories of separation have taken place in the past. So that needs to be looked at. You know, we don't want to possess somebody. And also there can be projection onto each other, that giving each other too much meaning, which needs to be addressed as well. So the next page, I've got here, we've got to look at isolating from threats, look at isolating each other from threats or intrusions. Here you can be intense and selective of others. So there can be over selection, which is not good either. You know, this can be quite controlling and manipulation, and this can really lead to loss of the relationship if we control and manipulate each other. So what you would need to do is move to the polarity point, the 8th house being Scorpio, and you would need to confront any limitations that exist within the relationship that's preventing it from growing. You would need to look at the occurrence of intense situations which allow for the examination and changes to occur. And then also there can be emotional shocks of separation which force examination of the relationship. Here it's about the examination of self and our own psychology and getting to the answers of our own questions. We need to get to self-empowerment and being self-sufficient, sharing with the world and other, because isolation can cause us to become distorted, and you know, it can distort our thinking. If we isolate ourselves in relationship, it can cause distortion. And becoming conscious and aware of allowing new ways to deal with issues. So instead of being stuck in one place and being stagnant, it's like looking at, you know, our values and how we relate to each other, and to get to a place in the relationship where you are not needing to possess the other. You know, we don't want to be possessing the other. We want to allow some freedom in it. And then now I'm going to read to you Composite Pluto in the 3rd house of Gemini. So this is a placement where we need that growth is very rapid, limitations being confronted that slow down growth. So we need to look at and examine the psychology of our emotional needs and our intentions and our desires, and embrace the new ways and agreements. Looking at new ways and agreeing new ways of doing things together is really important. There can be intensity of discussion with this Pluto 3rd house, or whether it's in Gemini, if you have Pluto there together. And it's about intensity and discussion, psychology. And it's what we're trying to do is understand the other and being open to thinking and new ideas. The feelings of being challenged and manipulated, so that we can feel that we're being manipulated here. We've got to watch out for that. And needs must be openly and honestly communicated. So if you have this placement, you really do need to look at the needs being openly and honestly communicated, and to watch out for unhealthy persuasion and brainwashing. So, you know, we can all do this in relationships, but particularly if you've got the composite Pluto in the 3rd house, you need to make sure that you're not trying to persuade somebody into just believing what you want them to believe. There can be resistance and repulsion from past life dogma. And what you're going to need to do if you have this placement to remedy any problems in the relationship is go to the composite Pluto point, which is the 9th house or Sagittarius. And this would mean that you allow for personal truth and openness to new possibilities. And also, you know, together you can have social interaction and travel. It's about learning to shift from the right brain and away from left brain analytical intuition and deeper awareness, knowing what is right and wrong for each other. Instead, you know, so get away from dogma and then go more, instead of being analyzing all the time, go to the right brain and, you know, see the bigger picture together. It's about knowing what to act on and what not, looking at the differences between our responses and our reactions, and learning to not control existing dynamics. So again, you don't want to be overly controlling or manipulating with this placement if you have a composite 3rd house Pluto with a partner or anybody in your life. You need to ask questions, allowing intuition to come in, and this allows for the maximum growth in a relationship, you know, by asking each other questions. And this relationship is basically, it's going to be about the ultimate truth. So again, you know, releasing any dogma. Now, next one is going to be composite Pluto in the 4th house of Cancer, or Cancer. And it's here, this relationship is about feeling safe and secure as past or emotional upheaval would have occurred, and there would have been no control over separation. So if you can think that we've got these imprints, that if we believe in past lives, as we do in evolutionary astrology, we come in with imprints, and these imprints affect the way we interact with each other and the dynamics within our relationships. And we need to look at any issues that we have, and looking at Pluto allows us to figure out what we're doing with another person and how to remedy any problems that come up. And so here it's about feeling safe and secure because of the past upheaval, and there would have been separations and deep insecurity regarding abandonment. There can be attempts to emotionally control and psychological or emotional dependency that needs to be watched here as well. There can be fears and a focusing on wounds, and, you know, being the helper and being helped, and being emotionally dependent on each other, and not wanting to heal the wounds. Because what happens is, if we often, when we heal our wounds in relationships, then we no longer require, you know, the other. So some people, what some of us will do is keep the wounds, you know, going, and keep opening those wounds, so that we don't ever really get to healing, which means that we're always dependent on each other. And here we can have withdrawal, manipulation, shutting down, and this can pose as a potential threat. You know, it can cause endings to relationships. So we need to really look at how we interact with each other. There can be a lack of giving each other space. There can be restriction and blame and a recreating of past problems. So we need to come to an understanding of our fears so that we can evolve them and stop being lost in the wounds and the emotions. And we need to move away from projecting onto the other. And this can also be to do with gender roles and past lives as well. So what we would do is that we would then go to the composite Pluto, which would be the polarity point, the 10th house of Capricorn, or Capricorn. And here what we would be doing to remedy any of the composite Pluto in the 4th house, we would basically get to emotional maturity and learn to accept responsibility for our actions, to stop projecting and see what emotional security is inside ourselves. So, you know, we've all got emotional security inside ourselves, and we've got to access that. And it's deep work, you know, and clearly it will take 2 people working together. One person can't. And this is the good thing. If you have a partner and you do get the Pluto book, or you're listening to this, you know, people need to work together. We need to communicate about these things that we understand or learn or know, so that we can help each other evolve. There's no point in, you know, just knowing this information and trying to do it all on our own. We need to bring another person on board and say, hey, look, I've been learning this, and this is what it says. What do you think? And have a conversation about it. And here, both of you can have, if you've got this placement, beneficial wisdom for others. And it's about the removal of impurities, and about real nurturing that is lasting. It's about, you know, God and divinity, and it's about the ownership of our own emotions as well. Okay. Thanks for whoever's watching out there as well, sticking with me on this. What I wanted to say was, if anybody knows, you know, whether they've got a composite Pluto and who with, that would be really nice to hear. It's not everybody does know about composite charts, but I'm going to be doing more work on that on, you know, my upcoming videos. So what have I got here? Have I got a page missing or not? Let's see. Okay, composite Pluto in the 5th house. These are my notes, by the way. Composite Pluto, 5th house, or Leo. Here, what you're going to do is you'll be focusing. It's about creative actualization and meeting our own needs and desires, and it's about individual support of each other. It's here you can both have strong wills, but at the same time you can both be helping each other and motivating each other to garner depth, purpose and power together, and individuality, a sense of being special together. There can be a sense of being special, if that makes sense. But it also does bring up a past of insecurities and having no power. There can be compulsions due to insecurity and power struggles together. You know, one wanting to control or dominate and being more special, because it's a sun. So if we look at Leo, it's a sun. So if you've got two people that are in relationship sharing the composite 5th house Pluto, then you're both going to want to shine. So there can, you know, you can get into differences about that, which can cause problems. And here there could have been emotional shocks in the past, in past lives, and, you know, feelings of being crushed and deflated. And there can be seeking others to regain that power, which can be hurtful, and you can be hurtful and humiliating to the other. So it's, again, important to really delve deeply. There can be concerns with children, or children, you know, the ownership of children. People with this placement, it can be about being step parents or uncompleted relationships. But here, the ultimate would be to empower each other and help each other to grow. And because of this, you would then look at the composite Pluto in the 11th house of Aquarius, and you would need to look at understanding the bigger picture, understanding the social patterns and the context of relationships, and looking at the bigger picture of relationships and each individual's contribution to society. You know, when you start then putting it out there and not just focusing on it yourselves, then you're going to be growing in a different way. Here you would look at understanding and allowing to look at each other's own specific needs. An allowance, also really important, of allowing each other to have activities, you know, outside the relationship. You know, very important to allow for emotional connections with other people, and to also at the same time let both of you each other know, you know, that you're both important to each other, but that you do need friends and other people to grow and have soul connection. And this is about giving in specific ways of meeting with others, giving together in a way together to society. So maybe you could do something together, like, you know, work in a charity together, or, you know, not a charity, but just working with other people together. And now you also would, you know, you would need to learn to explain to each other in a calm way and not be influenced by your own personal feelings all of the time. Like the sun, you know, it's all about me, and we want to get away from that and consider the other in relationship. Okay. Now I'm going to Pluto, composite Pluto in the 6th house of Virgo. And here it's about self-improvement. This relationship is about self-improvement, self-sacrifice. There would have been a lot of crises in the past lives, emotional and psychological crisis, and sadomasochism. So a lot of people can think that's just to do with sex, but it isn't. Sadomasochism can be to do with our psychology, like, you know, I'm the one who's always going to suffer, or I'm going to make you suffer. And we need to look at unconscious guilt and anger, and, you know, the idea that we've got to atone for guilt, because if we're both doing that to each other, and if we've got a composite Pluto in the 6th house, you know, there can end up being a lot of crisis going on, and we can end up with being disillusioned and then searching for resources to solve our problems, and then being too busy for each other, and then not meeting each other's emotional needs. So, you know, really beautiful when we look at composite Pluto, because we get to deeper levels of understanding relationships. It's evolutionary astrology and astrology in general, you know, the depths of it are, it's to do with psychology, and not a lot of people realize the depth of how deep astrology actually goes in explaining the archetypes and such. Here it's about, with the Virgo, Pluto Virgo composite, we're looking at focusing on becoming efficient and removal of crises. So as a couple, then we would, or a friend or whatever, however this placement falls in intimacy, we could say, you know, how are we creating crisis together? How can we release this? It's helping each other to heal wounds and repetition of masochistic tendencies. So that's, you know, the psychological masochism, stopping the reaction of the stopping recreating of the crisis, and self-punishment as well. And we need to look at where we're not reciprocating and sacrificing oneself. You know, so if you're continuously sacrificing yourself for the other, that it's not going to be a happy relationship. And relationships like this, they just sort of fall to pieces, you know, eventually. There can be a desire to right wrongs and a pact which causes difficulty. There can be bitterness and sarcasm, and one receives the benefits and one of the other one doesn't. So here we need to get to empathy, connection, and also look at any lack of intimacy that's going on. And what you would need to do then is go to your composite Pluto polarity point, which would be the 12th house in Pisces. And then you would look at, you know, the dissolving of creating crisis. You would stop that and you would want to heal that. And you would want to learn to work together to eliminate that and get to a place of peace together. And accepting the responsibility for each of your own actions and the overall reality in your lives. And then taking time out together, which would mean focusing on each other to resolve problems and, you know, create space for healing and release the cycles of that are painful, and acknowledging where and how we cause each other pain in relationship, and being honest with each other. You know, we know when we're being painful to each other in relationship, and we're, you know, in our maturity, we can really look at it instead of just repeating cycles. And a lot of this can be past life stuff, but also we can do it because of our early imprints and conditioning. If we've come from abuse, or we've had, you know, we've basically not had good role models, and we've seen parents being, you know, chaotic and out of order, we can think that love is a particular way when it's not love. And then what we need to do is forgive it with this placement, forgive each other for past life issues and resolve resentments and any feelings of anger. And it's easier said than done, but, you know, we can begin the process of sorting this out. So now I'm going to read composite Pluto in the 7th house of Libra. So hang on a sec. There you go. So you've got here it's about creating balance. So you see that I love this picture. She's balancing the heart and the jewels, and we're all jewels and we've all got a heart, if you can imagine that this is the truth, you know. And what we can do is, with the composite Pluto 7th house or Libra, what we're doing is we're learning to be in relationship where equality exists. So we need to understand that we need to get a place where we're allowing equality with each other to exist. And this is equality in giving and receiving, and to learn how to be balanced in the relationship, to understand the projections of our inner needs and the result of projecting. So if we're going to just go around projecting, you know, our problems, and we need to get to, you know, we're going to project to some degree being human beings, but we really need to look at what we are projecting, and is it healthy? Are my projections healthy or are they unhealthy? We need to learn to give and when not to give, and understand emotional dependency, and not to become emotionally enmeshed in emotional dependency on the other. And to look at that, we need to be subjective, look at our subjective judgments, our motivations, and our conclusions about the other. And we need to get rid of, and Jeff Wolf Green says this in the Pluto 1, he says, you know, this is the dilemma here, the dynamic is I can't live with you and I can't live without you. So that dynamic can play out really strongly, and it means that issues don't get resolved. So we need balance. And here it's about learning to understand the intention of this placement is learning balance and to give to one another. You know, it's about being giving and balance. And both needs and desires are important in relationship. And the individual also in a relationship needs to know that they are important. If you think about it, we all need to know that we are important in relationship. And then what you would do to resolve any issues in your relationship, if you've got composite Pluto in the 7th house, you would then go to composite Pluto polarity point in the 1st house of all Aries. And then you would go to absolute equality to each other's reality, and to understand codependency. And you can get books on codependency if you're in a 7th house Pluto composite. You can, you know, there's some great books on codependency, and you can look at that and begin to break cycles of being codependent with the other. You can learn to be free and independent within the relationship as well. You know, and freedom doesn't mean being unfaithful. It's just giving others the freedom to do what they need to do, you know, with certain things in their lives. And the more that we allow each other freedom in relationship, and basically we've got to look at our values as well, that we're having our values systems met in relationship. But it helps to maintain a relationship when we allow each other to have the freedom. But clearly, this is about values and respect as well. And we've all got different values and understandings of what that means to us individually. This is about encouraging each other to be independent and allowing for independent growth to occur within each other, and allowing for spiritual progress, and also the inner relationship to God. God can be whatever you want. I don't look at God from a religious perspective, but the source or whatever it is, it's allowing to take the journey together, but from a divine place. Now we're going to go on to the 8th house, composite Pluto in the 8th house of Scorpio. And I like this picture. She looks sultry there. It looks very Scorpionic to me. I'm Scorpio rising, and I also have Scorpio past life. I'm getting lost there. My south node is in Scorpio, and I'm also Scorpio rising. So I relate a lot to the Scorpio archetype. So here, Pluto in the 8th house, this is what is happening if you've got Pluto composite in the 8th house together. This is about a soul level connection, and it is a magnetic connection. There can be a lot of things going on around fears and repulsions in the subconscious with this placement. It's like attraction repulsion dynamic going on, and it can be very karmic and it can be very psychological. So it's an interesting thing that when we say, oh, we've got a soul connection, people can think, oh, that's, all love and light and roses. And it isn't. It can be hardcore. It's not, it sounds great, but in reality, it's a lot of work. Here it's about desires, equal intentions, and what motivates us and our psychology. Here we've got the desire to grow beyond our limitations, and it's about the attraction to something we are not, which brings awareness to when we're attracted to something, then basically it brings awareness to what we are and what we are not. It's being made aware of our own limitations. So this relationship can make us aware of our own limitations, and then to move beyond our own limitations. Here is also it's about using and being used, and the violation of trust, loss, abandonment, betrayals, insecurity, being secretive natures and hurting each other. So we have to watch out for that. This Pluto in the composite Pluto in the 8th house, sexualizing what we desire and sexual addiction, and wanting to merge to become one with another soul. And clearly, as great as that sounds, this can get very sticky and very tragic when we want to do that. Also, this is about the elimination of impurities, and that's the intention of this relationship, to become, to get rid of the impurities within us. So what you would do then is that you were to resolve any issues in the composite 8th house Pluto, you would then go to the 2nd house, and then you would look at the Taurus, the polarity, and this is about taking mutual responsibility, forgiveness of each other, and bringing to the fore all impurities and limitations to be resolved and healed. So this is about healing. So all relationships ultimately about helping heal each other. This is about the allowance to each other to meet our own needs, and about self-reliance and self-empowerment. It's about being together versus being, compulsions that are addictive. So we need to look, at any addictions that go on within this relationship, and to stop using the other. This is about new ways of being in relationship, and it requires total honesty and eliminating any secrets and secretiveness. Really look at eliminating those, and enforced, or if we don't look at stuff, then an enforced loss of each other can occur. And so taking the right actions in relationships will help resolve this. Okay, then we have composite Pluto in the 9th house or Sagittarius. So composite Pluto in the 9th house of Sagittarius, this is about knowing the reason for life and the deeper meaning and truth. And it's learning about the consequences of being dishonest with self and others. So if you've got this with a friend, I've got 2 girlfriends that I have a 9th house composite Pluto with, and it's about, when I'm in conversations with them, it's about being honest, with each other, and also not being dishonest. and it's a soul connection, and the why is not known. It's like there's a soul connection there, but we don't know why. And this is about philosophy and intellect and speaking on all different subjects and sharing stories. And there's a lot of shared commonalities here, and shared community deepens the connection and attraction to each other. So yes, even, you know, with friendships, it's not just about, you know, intimate relationship, it's about friendships as well, where you deepen the connection with each other. And also about being honest with self is the key, because when we're honest with ourselves and we're truthful with ourselves, then it's easier to be honest and truthful with others. It's to watch out for any storytelling that's not based on truth and that is not covering the truth, because dishonesty causes confrontation, and sometimes, you know, there will be needed confrontation. If we're being dishonest in this 9th house Pluto stuff, then, you know, there will be confrontations with each other. So to watch out for any trying to convince and convert, to trying to force the other to, you know, it's your way or the other's way. It's like, you know, watch out for any manipulation that goes on between each other. This is about attraction to natural law and the nature and the land. So what you would do with this composite Pluto 9th house, if you have this, then you would go to the polarity, which is Gemini and 3rd house. And this is about being honest with each other at all times, and to look and see, you know, what your agenda is with the other, and to discuss this, you know, what are our agendas with each other. And it's the examination of our belief systems, and it's honesty about our needs and allowing independence in beliefs, like allowing another to have different beliefs. It's allowing past memories of dishonesty to come to the surface to allow forgiveness to occur. So if there's been dishonesty, for instance, in past lives, there's past life imprints, or even in this life, if you've got a friendship that goes way back and you've been dishonest with each other, it's like, resolve it now, you know, get to the truth, and, you know, to allow forgiveness to occur. So here it's about using our intuition and also following that inner guidance and sharing knowledge and truth and not dogma. You know, we don't want dogma in our relationships, like I'm right and you're wrong. That's not fair, and it's not, it's unkind as well, and it's not truth. It's increasing knowledge and conscious awareness also with this placement. Okay, so now I'm going on to composite Pluto in the 10th house of Capricorn. And here we have composite Pluto, 10th house Capricorn. And this is about the family dynamics and the impact that those family dynamics have had on them. And this is about recovering, to recover, and for healing, allowing healing to occur from displaced and unresolved childhood traumas. So this can be, if you've got this can be to do with this life, or it can do with past life imprints. And both of you may take on the parental role by bouncing backwards and forth to resolve childhood wounds and from childhood. This can be linked to siblings or parents, parent-child. There can be varying traumas and security and power struggles. There can be manipulations and judgments and control from the past to be watched and look out for that. This is about the examining of all judgments, and judgments are part of our consciousness, you know. So as human beings, we're going to judge, you know, we're going to judge if, like, for instance, you know, if we're going to put our hands on a stove, we've got to judge whether it's hot or not, for instance. So not all judgment is wrong, but we can look at our judgments together. We can look at our patterns and our belief systems and make sure they're not impaired. And then we can look, you know, there are healthy judgments, there are unhealthy negative judgments. So we need to undo any damage and rebuild a new self-image, and that is possible, you know, and release all guilt and anger with this placement. And also this can be from past life. It's about switching of roles, you know, where old roles have been outdated, and getting in touch with our inner male and inner female. And that would be the work of Carl Gustav Jung, you may have heard or not, but the anima and the animus, but that's for another video. But, you know, we've all got the male, female inside us, but it does say that from past lives where we've possibly switched roles, you know, if we've had a past life where your partner was male and you were female, and then you switched roles in this lifetime, as an example. This is a process here is occurring of ending the journey on Earth together to new cycles and a new way of being together also. So it's not just ending a cycle, but a new way of being together. And what you would do with this placement to balance it out, you would go to Composite Pluto polarity point, 4th house of Cancer, and you would look at all of your fears and vulnerabilities, both psychological and emotional, and any fears or judgments and any abandonment and betrayal that's taken place. And then you would look at also your parental conditioning and what reality that created for you. So you can imagine all of us have our own reality, and that's based on our upbringing, like, you know, what consensus reality is. You know, we look at the belief systems throughout the world and the conditioning that goes on. So here it's about creating one's own identity and reality. And then we need to reflect the inner world, our true world, and come out of hiding. And that placement will allow us to become assertive and then release any fears and to release any repression that's been going on, and to learn to do this individually, not just as a couple or friendship, but individually. And then this allows us to become inwardly secure and emotionally free. Here we can also look at releasing any attempts to manipulate or control the other person, to not be dependent, and to release external causes of dependency. So really good to look at that also. This is about learning to balance our obligations to grow an active emotional life in our private time, and to release all suffering carried out by others, and to lose all guilt and be free of that which has burdened us in the past. So this is a good one. And then they're all good. But it's really good stuff to really think about, you know, if you find out whether, if you've got a friend or a partner or work colleague and you're having problems, you look at your Composite Pluto, you can sort out a lot of issues. So now I'm going to go on to Composite Pluto in the 11th house or Aquarius. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, Composite Pluto, 11th house or Aquarius. So here what you're doing is you're learning to stand back from one another. Sorry, it was a bit loud. You're starting to stand back from one another and look at the immediacy and the reality of and becoming objective. And here it's about meetings will come through, you know, the meeting of each other would have come through groups, or maybe a shared purpose of working together and a special social function that you've got together. And it's helping each other to objectify, to disengage and detach, to help each other become liberated. That's the purpose of having a Composite Pluto in the 11th house or Aquarius. And here it can be about rebelling against conditions. You know, there are conditions in the world that are really not good. And we need people, you know, where we rebel and say, no, that's not right, you know, and we stand up in groups and we help each other. It's about finding and understanding through each other and one another with the Composite Pluto 11th house. It's about, you know, it's no existence. So this isn't about a relationship. It's about where, it's not so much about where there's been intimacy. It's been more about where you've been friends, and it's where there's been separation due to enmeshment in past lives. There are desires and promises to help each other here, and the common goals to detach. The common goal has to be to detach and to objectify. But what you would do then is that you would go to your Composite Pluto polarity point, which is in Leo. And here what you're going to be doing is the context would have been defined in previous lifetimes. And this is for friends and lovers too, you know, where there's been too much dependency. So you're going to learn to take charge of yourself and your own direction if you have this with somebody else. And you're going to learn to validate and become self-sustained, self-validate, act on thoughts and reflect who they are, act on your own thoughts and reflect who you are outwardly, and raise your vibration, attracting others of like minds. And it's about nourishing to develop and learning to who one's real friends are. This is really important. And then it's about integrating with others and new ideas, values, and ideals that transform society, helping others to become aware of their own conditioning and how to become free and liberated from conditioning that holds others back. So that's, you know, this is quite beautiful, the Aquarius Pluto as well, the Pluto, Composite Pluto. So now I'm going to go to Composite Pluto, 12th house or Pisces. And we have here there's been a joint desire to help each other to look at any of your illusions, fears, phobias, and delusions. And this is to heal various traumas, psychological, emotional, and sexual wounds. It's about penetrating each other's souls to evolve, to see what has been blocking or stopping each other's growth, and to become free inwardly, and for healing to take place at a soul level. So if you have a composite Pluto with 12th house with another, this is what you'll be experiencing. And here we've got, it's about sensitivity to each other. Even when you're apart, you'll have a sensitivity to each other. And this is about the pineal gland and melatonin, and it sensitizes our consciousness and helps to dissolve barriers. So, you know, the ruler of Pluto, Pisces, is the Neptune. So, you know, we can see that, you know, it dissolves things. Neptune is the dissolver. You know, it's the fog, but it's also the totality of consciousness. And this allows for a direct connection to source and merging with God, whatever God is for you. So really, you know, God is just, you know, it's very subjective and numinous as well. Like it's going to be different for each of us. Here we have, with the composite Pluto 12th house, it's about a sense of no boundaries, and it's about being psychic as well. There can be isolation, which, you know, and merging, and this can cause problems if we isolate and in order to merge with another, feeling that we've got to sacrifice ourselves at all costs. We've got to watch out for that. And this is a culmination of an entire cycle of being intimate together, and about simplifying life. So what you would do to evolve any problems that you have with a composite Pluto 12th house, you would then go to the polarity point, which will be the 6th house of Virgo. And this is about helping each other to know when to allow the other to resolve their own problems for themselves. So instead of, you know, getting busy and, you know, trying to help heal somebody, it's like knowing when to let the other walk ahead and heal themselves as well, and not sacrificing ourselves, you know, in silly ways in order to heal. You know, for instance, you might, as an example, let's say that your partner has an addiction and that you're, you know, ruining your own life trying to help them solve their addiction. It's like, really look at this. So here the polarity point is to learn that when to help and when not to help. And this goes beyond the relationship and includes others, to learn what is correct inwardly and to follow one's own intuition. And it's knowing when to be, you know, when to withdraw and when to be available to another as well. And then about learning, accepting responsibility to release any feelings of feeling like I'm the victim, like the victim martyrdom mentality, you know, thinking, oh, I'm in this really bad relationship and I'm a victim. You know, we've got to know what's good for us and what's not. And also that we can, with this placement, look at professional therapy and past life regression as well, which, you know, there are books on that. There's a brilliant book that I'm come across at the moment on evolutionary astrology that I'm reading on past life regression. So the next slide. So understanding what the merging is, and this is a little bit from the book that I suggest. This is the first book of Pluto, Jeff Wolf Green, which I recommend both, that you get those. I'll put the links below the video when I finish this section, so that you can go and get these books on Amazon. So that Jeff Wolf Green said in Pluto 1, page 346, he said that it's about the need to merge with source. The universal requires that the individual leaps into the abyss with faith, so that all barriers preventing this conscious union can be dissolved. Yet this evolutionary need is commonly met with resistance and fear. Just as the wave can resist returning to the sea for a time, so does the egocentric identification within the individual resist surrendering to the cosmic ocean of being from which he or she originated. So, you know, we can resist wanting to heal in our relationships. We can resist wanting to do the work. We can resist leaving relationships that are no longer good for us, you know. So, and this again can be our conditioning and such. This is very deep what Jeff Wolf Green's saying here. So, you know, beautiful what he's saying. And last but least, we've got, I'm going to come off and see if there's any questions in a minute, but when I've finished this slideshow. So Carl Gustav Jung was born in 1875. He died, I think it was 1961. Beautiful soul who was into psychoanalysis and also astrology. He looked at people's astrology charts when he needed to dig deeper. And his daughter became an astrologer as well. So he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And that is a really deep statement. And it's taken me years to understand that, like, not to just read it and understand it, but to really embody what that means and see that playing out in my life. You know, the painful events, like any trauma I've been through in childhood. And for any of us, we can see that what's unconscious in us will be, you know, directed outwardly, and we will call it fate. Then also we can see how this statement has a direct connection to Pluto, in my view, because, you know, it's about resisting as well. So what you resist not only persists, but it will grow in size. So, and then one little bit more here, Jeff Wolverine says this: the need to defend reflects the desire to maintain separateness. So, you know, there is no separation ultimately. We're all souls, and we all came in, we're all gonna leave, and there is no separation. So that's another very deep statement to look at as well. And that's it. I'm gonna stop share. Right, I'm back. I think yep, you can see me. I'm back. So I don't know if anybody has any questions. I'm just gonna come out of this and show. Does anybody there know where their Pluto is in their natal chart? I've got 3 viewers at the moment. If any of you know where your natal chart is, do you know where Pluto is in your natal chart? Mine is in the 9th house. I have a 9th house Pluto conjunct Uranus. And, you know, when we examine our Pluto, what happens is that we begin to, when we read this material, we begin to evolve. We begin to grow in ways that we would never know possible. So if you don't know how to read your chart and you're interested in looking at your natal chart, I do that. You can see that I'm my booking below. And then if there's, you know, if you buy the books, you're going to do yourself a big favor as well to really understand. Don't play around with your time of birth. If you're stuck with that and you need to do chart to reconcile it with time, if you're stuck, if we put the wrong time in, we're just going to get, you know, information that's not going to be realistic to us. So there's ways of doing that as well. Okay, that's it. I'm done. I hope whoever was watching has enjoyed that, and I'll be back over the weekend with some more astrology stuff. Catch you later, and I thank you for watching. Thanks.